As dawn broke, the Egyptians flocked to the Hebrews, who were readying to leave, to give them gold, silver, and clothing. Jewellery and food was gifted, and even knives, whatever was requested. Though to some, this delay at the moment of departure caused anxiety and aggravation. The Hebrews had plundered the Egyptians, just as God had told Abram they would. It was the 14th of Nisan, the same day that Jacob and his family had first entered Egypt during the famine 430 years ago. In the eyes of God, the Hebrews were his army. In their own eyes, however, they suffered from a much lesser image. This night of deliverance God called the Passover, as the Lord had passed over all the houses marked with lamb's blood. This had been God's directive before the night had begun, that the Hebrews eat lamb and unleavened bread, then prepare to leave Egypt in the morning. All had smeared lamb's blood on their doorposts and lintels to protect their firstborns from the plague of death. After a lifetime of beatings and fear, the exodus felt sudden and surreal. 600,000 men plus women and children began to move away from the Nile Delta. Moses had arranged for the elders and their sons to spread out among the crowd to ensure that they kept moving. Moses and Aaron were at the head of the people. Those further south met with the northern group as they headed east. Zipporah was proud of Moses, happy to be getting away from Egypt, and even happier to be returning to Midian. "Pharaoh will suspect a trick," she observed to Moses. "Oh yes," said Moses. "He has not been truly deceived for one moment." "Then won't he be coming for us?" "Very likely," said Moses. Miriam had been listening from behind them, and she came closer. "What did you just say?" "Believe in God, and remember what he has done to set you free," was Moses' answer. But Miriam expressed her concerns to Aaron, and some of the people overheard them talking. After 3 days, a night's rest became imperative, and the people camped. Being one to name things after his experiences, Moses named the campsite Sukkot, which simply means tents. It began to rain during the night, as springtime in that region received abundant rainfall, and also brought flash floods. The rain was a sign of God's blessing on their journey. When able, the people set off once more. Babies were worn in papooses. Small children, some of the people and the elderly were drawn in carts by oxen. They stopped at intervals as some traded places with those who could walk. They made great progress across the way of the wilderness, a trade highway of level ground, the surface almost as hard as rock. Sure enough, heavy rain brought streams from which the people, Jacob's sheep, and the herds drank. They were continually reminded by the elders to keep moving all along the column. Adrenaline was also keeping them going, since the soldiers would probably be coming after them. This also helped to keep their hunger at bay. Once on the highway, a wonderful blessing came. The appearance of God's presence went before them as a pillar of cloud in the day and a pillar of fire by night. It was spectacularly beautiful and a marvel to all. This sign bolstered their courage. He was with them as they travelled. People began to relax and even laugh. They remarked on the majestic beauty of the pillar of fire in particular, which was 200 meters wide and about twice as high. It was as if part of the sun had descended for them. Hippaware had told the Hebrews that he was deserting Egypt and wished to journey with them and learn of their God. He was closely monitored and strongly suspected as being a spy, but he didn't mind. He was astonished by everything that was happening. He strongly desired to speak to Moses and continued to edge his way closer to the front of the people. Then he caught sight of Royanet and Sakar walking arm in arm by Rebekah. He trotted up beside them. "Salem," he said. They paused momentarily as a couple of men rushed up to Hippoware, thinking he was going to make a move of some kind. "Rebecca," said to Hippoware, "you keep away from my girls." She had adopted Royanet, whose parents had died some time ago. "What are your names?" asked Hippoware, walking beside them. "Sakar." Royanet said nothing. "And your name, lovely girl?" Hippoware persisted. Royanet only frowned slightly, and they continued to walk. "Well then," said Hippoware resignedly, and hurried on ahead with the two men keeping up with him. "Sakar with the black tresses," he began in soliloquy. "No, that's no good," he said. One of the guards suggested, "Sakar, your hair is like a flock of sheep." "That's terrible," said Hippoware. The men chuckled. Thunder announced more relief, and down came great fat drops of rain. The people were soaked through within minutes. The smell of wet earth was refreshing, though the rain was quite cold. The children laughed and ran. 150 miles later, the Hebrews approached a welcome sight, a populated area where they could exchange gold and silver for food and maybe even take a rest and a cup of tea. It was out of Moses' hands once they neared, as the people spread out like ants among the 53 villages. He ordered camp to be set up on the outskirts. Many of the Hebrews deserted their belongings and headed into the towns. The area was by the tip of the Gulf of Aqaba and called Etam. Some of the Hebrews even went to the sea to bathe, and Moses wasn't sure if everyone could be accounted for that evening. Some arrived back late into the night and didn't bother to set up their tents, but instead slept on the bundles of their belongings. Others were singing. People had purchased tobacco, including Tziphrah, whose supply had run out in Egypt. She reacquainted herself with her long pipe, fitted with a water filter. Moses surprised her with a necklace of beads with a centerpiece of dark green and blue stone common to the region. The next day, Menachem and Seneb met Rebecca with Sakar and Royanet as they went shopping for additional provisions and even some trinkets. They sampled tea, though it was standing room only. Camel trains came through, and the women rushed to see beautiful cloth and to inhale aromas of spices. They bought all their heart's desire. After all, why be frugal? The promised land was only a week or so away, and that was flowing with milk and honey according to Moses' description. Their confidence was rising. Hippoware gave his guards the slip and managed to locate the party. "Solem," he said to Sakar, and attempted a smile with Royanet. "You again," said Rebecca. "I'm only being friendly," protested Hippoware. "Why aren't those men watching you?" "I was too slippery for those old men," joked Hippoware. Sakar chuckled. Royanet smiled at last. That made Hippoware happy. However, he'd written a poem for Sakar. "May I sit with you as soon as there is room?" Rebecca and Menachem said simultaneously, "Not without their mothers." "Of course," said Hippoware. "I would hear of nothing else. But where are their fathers, that I may meet them?" "Asher is helping look after the animals. Menachem's husband died at the hands of Pharaoh," said Rebecca pointedly. Too soon, pleasures had to be deferred, as word was getting around that Moses had gone to seek God's instructions. Everyone had assumed that they would travel north of the Gulf, then southeast into Midian for a time, before travelling into Canaan. But apparently the terrain was impossible for their carts, steep and rocky, and only suitable for camels or horses. That night they slept near the towns for the last time. Hippowares stayed up all night after a brief chastisement for his disappearance, and in the morning he sought Moses, who was busy urging people to break camp at once. "Is Pharaoh pursuing?" he asked Moses. "You're that scribe we found snooping about. Well, your friends have no doubt reported to Pharaoh that we have been gone more than the week he was expecting," said Moses. "Like I said, I'm no spy, I'm a defector. I'm not sure which is worse, but I see that your God is great and powerful, and your women beautiful." Moses snorted. "You are a writer like me," said Hippoware. "I'm recording our journey. If you want to make yourself useful, get the people roused to pack up," said Moses. Just then the two guards rushed up to them. "Sorry, Moses, we lost him in the crowd." "It's too late to report to Pharaoh. Leave him be," said Moses. "Get everyone moving. God has told us to turn back a short distance away from the villages and then directly south off the main road." Moses walked away quickly and continued to ensure that everyone knew where they were going. The pillar of cloud appeared to be slowly turning back the way they had come. "Hurry, the Lord is moving!" shouted Moses. Then he sought out his family. At 80, Moses was wondering how he was doing all this. Then he knew it could only be in God's strength. That helped his faith, and he would need it to keep going with the task. The elders and their sons stood at intervals directing the people at the turn-off from the way of the wilderness. Their road came to a mountain range along the coast of the Gulf. The pillar of cloud went into the mountains through an opening called Lord of the North, and the people followed. "This is one of several roads into these ranges," Moses said to Aaron. "There are others further to the south, but all of them lead out to the sea by one road." "You were here as Pharaoh's general," said Aaron, shaking his head at Moses' former life. "General of Lower Egypt," said Moses. "Do you miss it?" "I was content shepherding with Jethro and Zipporah, and my sons are shepherds too." "She's a beautiful woman, your wife." "You should have seen her when she was young." "But she does look young." After a pause, Moses said, "We will make camp on the beach at the mouth of the gorges, by the Fortress Tower mountain."